Beginning, part 5 of my story. Let's get on with it. That's right, I'm going to try it again with the video producer. At some point you have to try, so here we go. I'll say the title again because I don't know when the video first starts. Spiritual Awakening, part 5 of my story. After I went to storm duty with Baltimore Gas at Baltimore Gas and Electric, and I was thrown off and put into a hotel, and then almost forced to pay my own way for the last couple of days that I couldn't get back into my house, I knew there had to be another way. For whatever reason, I started studying astrology. I don't even know why. Never really studied it before. Never believed in anything before. So I don't know why I stuck with it. I read all about my natal chart, what my birth date was, what the specific time, what the moon meant, what every representation meant, the conjunction, the sextile, the trine, so on and so forth. What every planet meant, Mercury, Venus, Neptune, Pluto, what have you. It was kind of interesting that my career house was Pisces, the MC, and then it said I had like either a spiritual career or a career by the water, which didn't make any sense to me. But hey, I guess here we are, right? And then eventually, what I typed in was spiritual. Not what I typed in. Oh, what did I type in here? Oh, is life path for Cancer rising? I knew nothing about numerology at this point. I didn't know anything about life path numbers or anything like that, or repeating numbers. And when I typed it into Google search, that's when I first heard of numerology. I ended up my birth date the wrong way the first time, and found out that I was a life path 11/2. And that was a master number. I then found somebody online via YouTube that made videos, and then I found it on Facebook, and she kind of taught me everything I know now about numerology. I wasn't an official student of hers. I found her online and just followed what she was saying. At this point, because my father, passed away and got sick, as I stated in the second to last video, I kind of was on leave from my job, and I had to get stuff together, and I dragged my feet on moving. I didn't want to move. I didn't really feel that there was a need to move. Why move when it costs the same anyway? But the place began to have rodents, and it was just weird. But I just kept studying. I bought Alan Oken's book for astrology, his complete astrology book for the personality-centered astrology. I also purchased his soul-centered astrology book. I purchased a lot of books. Healing Hands by Barbara Brennan, a book on Chiron. I had a lot of different things. I purchased Doreen Virtue's book on what the numbers meant. Pretty soon after, about 5 months or so after I got the book, I kind of threw it out. It was no longer any good. Because I realized that the numbers meant more than just what it says in that little small book of hers. A lot of different things. But I just dragged my feet on moving because I just didn't want to move. I didn't know that I could move it. I didn't know that I could survive outside the house that I was in. The more I lied in stillness, the more the energy became present, and I began to feel energy in other areas of my body besides my hands. I began to have more vivid dreams, see more repeating numbers. And it went on like this for numerous months. I went to an In Flames concert. Well, actually, it was more of an Alter Bridge concert. That was the main act, but I went on board to see In Flames. And then I took a ride to a diner with the Uber driver wanted to treat me to breakfast. So she came inside, we talked, and she found out what was going on. She came by to see me every once in a while, and then when I had no place to go, she put me up at her place. I found out that after I moved in with her that I lost everything. How was I going to get down the steps when I had a walker and I was handicapped? You know, it was a very confusing time, and I just felt like I lost. It was a very hard time, because it was the first time I really lived any place by myself without any other family members. It was a difficult transition. I eventually found out 4 days after I moved in that if I just messaged the Uber driver to come, help me get the walker down the steps, then that would work out. And for the most part, it did. My roommate, Joy, was all about, she felt her upbringing was very rigid. She was obsessed with cleanliness, even though the place wasn't, super clean. She herself wasn't super clean, but she was obsessed with cleanliness. She was obsessed with being discriminated against because she was African American and I was white. And she was really trying to hide me away so that no one saw me because they didn't want anyone to see, because she didn't want the rent to get raised up. I eventually ran out of money, couldn't pay rent 1 month, got a job at Toyota Financial, the banking side, as a leasing and services clerk. I was obsessed with going to Arizona and moving to Arizona because I thought at that time that was going to improve my life in so many ways. And I eventually got so obsessed with it that my energy became a little bit stagnant. I couldn't go to the bathroom right. Hello, Christopher Jones. I mean, as far as, readings, I'm not doing that right now. If that's what you're asking for a collective reading for everybody, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just telling my story of my biography. So it's the 5th part. I mean, advice that I would give everybody right now is don't wait to start your dreams. Take steps now. It's easier than you think. I thought that I would have a difficult time shaving my body hair off in certain parts of my body. Last night I finally did it with rather ease, parts of it anyway. So technically I've been lying to myself about that whole thing for a long time. Now that I know that what I've been saying is a lie, it's time to move forward. But my roommate would drive me to a Toyota. I would go to my job, complain about everything because it's a job that I didn't want. It's a job that I kind of, had before a little bit with BGE. And it's just like, ugh. I didn't know about Airbnb at the time. I didn't know about couch surfing. But I was obsessed with moving to Arizona because it was cheaper to, live there. And I might have found more of my tribe because it was more Reiki friendly, it seemed. I learned now that that's not the case. I took a coaching class with someone. She gave me her mediumship class for free, so I began to take that. And then I had an opportunity to go for a job interview in Tempe, Arizona, at the end of March. I lied to my employer and said that I needed to take a couple of days off to see my grandmother that lived in Arizona because she was she was sick and was going to pass away soon, and she knew it. We weren't to take any days off for the first 2 months I was at work. If we took 3 days off, we were automatically out. So I risked 2 days to go down to Arizona to see about this job. Needless to say, I didn't get the job, but I'm so glad I went out there. I was excited as can be to actually get there. my roommate came with me for support. But we got into an argument about the place that I was staying at, because she was like, oh, it's right next to a strip club, it's got this and that and the other thing, and it's like, okay, it's a business trip. This was a business trip for me. I wanted to stay and have fun and check things out, but it was a business trip. Back then, I felt like I couldn't afford XYZ to stay there longer, so we left, because she got us good tickets from a friend. It was $100 to pay to get the tickets, and so we left on a Tuesday night around 7 o'clock Eastern time or so, maybe even later, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night Eastern time. Got there around 10:30, 11 p.m. Pacific time. I went on the interview at 4 o'clock Pacific time the next day, and then we left to go back to Baltimore around 3 in the morning on a Thursday, and then I was back in Baltimore by 12 o'clock p.m. that afternoon. I didn't get the job, but hey, at least I went out there and took a risk. It was awesome. I felt awesome. And then things went back to normal. And then I met another coach that was promising something quite hefty. Maybe I shouldn't have believed her, which in retrospect is true. But hey, I felt I was pretty lucky so far. My credit limit expanded because I bought a Nintendo. So because everything was kind of coming into place. My uncle's giving money to move out to Arizona, and then I ended up paying for this retreat thing in Maui, because the one person that I trusted told me to get a ticket to Maui, and that she would take care of the rest of the stuff. This trip ended up not happening, and kept getting pushed back, and then it ended up not happening whatsoever. Because I took an extra day, a third day off to get stuff together to go on this Maui trip that didn't happen. I ended up losing my job at Toyota Financial. We had difficulty paying the rent again. I ended up taking out my retirement money to pay for more coaching for another thing. And then, okay, my roommate wanted to move back to Pennsylvania anyway. So in July of 2018, I took off and went to Arizona to see if I could start my life over again. I had to get on 2 different planes, and one plane was Spirit, so I never ride with them again because they don't transfer luggage whatsoever. And then once I got there, I tried looking for jobs, over and over again. That didn't work out. I was there for 4 days. Realized that my problem would follow me no matter where I went to. Then I took a flight back to Baltimore because I realized that Arizona wasn't the golden coin, the golden ball that I thought it was. Then stayed up in a hotel in Baltimore. Actually, it was in Parkville, Maryland, so just beyond Towson. Then I got images of a beach and the word San Diego. So I took a Greyhound bus from Baltimore to San Diego. Took 3 days to get there. Didn't know to pack snacks because I ended up paying expensive prices to get drinks and snacks at the place, the convenience stores we stopped at. But it's still cool that I did that because I saw the St. Louis Arch from the outside. I saw the Rocky Mountains at sunset. One day I'll go back to Colorado and see the rest. Or see a good bit of it. And then I figured, okay, since I know about couch surfing, I'll find a place to stay before the 3 days before I get there. That didn't happen, so I ended up staying at another hotel more of the time. And then I couch surfed with a couple of people, met somebody that took me to a comedy club. I saw Hillcrest, I saw Chula Vista, I saw Nestor. I got invited as a guest to go to the Rotary Club in what was it? I forget. It was in the northern part. I can't think of the northern suburb now. It wasn't Vista, but it was close to that. It wasn't, but yeah, I ran out of money. And then it turned out the person that I paid for all this coaching and the Maui trip was a fraud. I couldn't get my money back from the bank because they said that, what I did was legit. So they couldn't do anything. I ended up going to the hospital because I didn't want to stay at Airbnbs anymore and I got dehydrated. They put me in somewhere. That woman that I paid for rent for the first month also ended up being a fraud as well, coincidentally. Even though she was supposed to take care of people, help people that had no place to go. Then she contacted a friend to take me because she wanted to go see her sick mother in Mexico. That's when I found out after I was in the group home that she was a fraud. My bank account was overdrafted by $1,000 or so. Then it came back to that my request for to get my money back was also declined, so that was $2,000 more than I was overdrafted. First I had to get out of the group home because I couldn't afford to stay there any longer. There were 15 people that lived inside the group home. A lot of them weren't mentally all there. And so I ended up having a stint with homelessness for a bit. Finally, I broke down and asked my friends on Facebook for help to get back to Baltimore because I didn't want to be in San Diego anymore. I took a Greyhound bus from San Diego back to Baltimore, stayed in an Airbnb, tried to, didn't know what else to do, applied for jobs there in Always Mills again. Those got declined. I eventually broke down and asked for help from my family, and they couldn't do anything. I ended up going for a shelter for about a week. Then finally, my brother's in-laws, they caved and they let me stay with them for the winter and spring months. And during that whole time, I really got clear on what it is I wanted. Why things happened the way it happened. And what I found is that I didn't make a clear decision. Even if things didn't go quite, right, I should have stuck with just, one decision and that was it. I shouldn't have wavered back and forth. And that was the downfall to everything that transpired. I didn't really want coaching at that time. What I really wanted was out of a regular job. That's what I wanted. And I should have stuck with promoting numerology when I did all that stuff. I eventually got my certificate with the mediumship course in April of 2019. And that's when my gifts started to flourish. The negative debt that was on my bank account, got lowered. I got some help from friends, from my uncles and stuff that helped me out. And Social Security finally approved me for whatever reason, I don't know, but that was good. And so my account was in the black again. For the first time in about 5 months, my account was in the black. I made it through that hard time. The only thing is, when everybody was helping me try to find jobs and getting me to the interviews, none of them would really work out. And then they got angry at me because they thought that I was sabotaging it for whatever reason, and that I wasn't trying hard enough. And then towards the end of my stay, because I had to get out by June. That was the time frame that they set. That was final. And then I finally, around May, had to tell them, that the whole 9-to-5 thing just wasn't for me, and that now that I had the money that I had, I was going to move out to Arizona and finally see once and for all if it was for me. Because the Baltimore Gas Electric thing, they wouldn't work with me back then, and that's kind of like a chip I had on my shoulder for the longest time. They wouldn't allow me to come back part time, or to improve my circumstances unless it was their way. And I felt I couldn't go back, so I had to leave that job. And I guess I got caught up in too much of the spirituality of things, and forgot about the physical aspect certain other aspects, certain other things. No, not everything, turned out well for me. But being homelessness for a stint in San Diego and then again in Baltimore for a little bit taught me how to take care of myself, taught me that I'm capable of more than I thought. It taught me for the first time how to make a decision and stick to that decision. And so on May 29th of last year, I moved to Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. And I stuck with it. It was scary. I only had $300 in my account at the time. I used the rest of the money to invest in a channeling course and to pay down my debt. And everything ended up working out. All because I made a firm decision and I stuck with it. That's what transpired. I didn't sit around and read books and just use the, imagery. I took action and I stuck with it. And that's what's held true to me since then. That's what helped me get through some more smaller difficult times. If you want something, own it and stick with the decision. Don't sit there and waver. Don't sit there and do something and then, the first sign of trouble, back away. Because that's what I did the first time. It was, this other stuff's not working out. So I backed away. I went back to the old. Little did I know that I couldn't go back to the old, because going back to the old didn't really help. Because here's also what I learned. When you try to go back to the old, because when you're doing something new, when you go out and embark on a new adventure, a new thing, as you build forward to that new thing, the old, or what was the old, changes. So the things that are in that old spot also move forward in a different kind of way. So you can't really go back to what was, even if you go back to an old location, because the things in that area of that old location also moved forward. I also realized the moment-to-moment mattered more. Like, what do I want to do on a moment-to-moment perspective? Why are video games so fun to me? Why is Mario 64 so much fun? It isn't because you find stars. The stars isn't what makes that game fun. It's the moment-to-moment, the actual gameplay. When you first boot up the game, you get put in that the area outside the castle, the moat. And so you can practice your moves, you can do jumping, you can run, you can do whatever, you can swim. So you can practice everything and you can jump around and do nothing. And what makes the game the most fun is how tight the controls are and how fun the controls are in the moment-to-moment perspective. If the controls were stiff and they didn't really work that well, it wouldn't matter how many stars were in the game, how many levels there were to explore, because the moment-to-moment sucks. And so that's when I finally, learned something brand new. That nothing worked out because I didn't enjoy the moment-to-moment. I wanted something else to make my life better. Instead of making my life better from an internal perspective. All of my problems followed me from Baltimore to Arizona to California. Why? Because I was always trying to get out of something. I was always trying to escape something else. That's why. Whereas if I made one decision and stuck with it, then it would have been okay. Did I take time and shoot for a long-term Airbnb the first time I was in Arizona? No. I got an Airbnb for 4 days, from Tuesday to Friday, and that was it. Was I, determined to make it work? No. I wanted things to, just work out for me without me trying too hard. I wanted, my troubles to end. I was tired of the crap and didn't really know how to make it better. I didn't want to take a risk. I wasn't ready to move. I wasn't ready to take a risk, and that's why everything failed. Whereas if I just would have stuck with things, I would have made out better. I could have, developed my mediumship skill faster. and I could have networked with more people. I wouldn't have had to gone through all that stuff. But I guess I had to in order to learn my true value. That everything had equal value, that there was nothing that had more value than something else. Once I learned that each choice made was an equal value, then things started to get better for me. Then things started to improve by a wide margin. And so here I am, still living in Arizona, 1 year later, doing a lot better than I ever did before ever in my life. The goals that I'm working on now is trying to inspire people and use it as my career, to tell my story and to help inspire people to take their power back, to help them learn how to take risks, and to see that things don't need to be as hard as we make them. That's what I want. That's what I'm shooting for. Everything else that I have in my life, I'm cool with. To 92% of my life is, as I want it to be. It's just the last career part. I guess I wouldn't say that's a stopper, but that's the thing that I'm working on now. And in a sense, I'm getting the chance now to tell my story right here, right now, as I explain things. In that regard, I'm living 100% what I want my life to be. I couldn't ask for anything more, because I have everything already. Sure, I'd like to travel a little bit more, possibly. But that'll come. I'm not too worried about things. If I traveled before, I can travel again. I'm proud of what I accomplished in my life, even if it took, sometimes a long way around. I finally got over the fact that, yeah, I can remove my body hair if I want to. I just saw a girl last week in a wheelchair that was, wearing certain outfits that appealed to me. And if she's in a wheelchair and she can, get rid of her body hair, then so can I. It's not as hard as I thought it was going to be. And I've been putting, one of my dreams off because of that whole thing. Now that I know that I'm lying to myself, now I can achieve at least another part of, a smaller part of my overall dream. All that's left for me is to finally embrace my career in inspiring other people, whether that's through a radio show, audio, public speaking, it doesn't matter. All of these things are just a vessel of how I, live my soul purpose. I'm already in purpose now. There's no reason for me to find it because it's already found. Now the question is, how do I want to, what vessel do I want to use to achieve my goal? That's it. That's all she wrote. And that's, my story up until this point. I mean, I'll probably make another video stating some of the more side things, some more details on certain aspects. But that's me. That's my story. Obviously, there's been a lot more, and I mean, I'm still reading a book that I put down for numerous months. But hey, that's my story. That's how I came to be the person that I am. The only sad part is, it sucks that my parents had to die in order for me to take my power back. It's too bad that my parents couldn't see me in the physical form, me doing what I'm doing now. Although they probably wouldn't have approved because that's what how they were back then. Still, That's the only shameful part. The only other bad part is it took me this long to do everything. Especially with the hair removal part, with at least, shaving and whatnot. I could have been doing that the entire time, and I thought that it was more difficult than it was. Thank you all for listening to my story. As always, keep pushing forward and stay epic.